Oh, hi there, and welcome to the Leftover Culture Review, the only review show on the internet brave enough to say no. And let's hope Mum doesn't hear me swearing on the internet, because that would be really bad for the longevity of this channel. So please like, subscribe, share this video with your family and friends before we get shut down. Also, it lets me be as lazy as I want. If you've already liked and shared the video, I could basically just review something I've already looked at, the Sega Menacer. It's right there in the title, it's right there in the background. This light gun for the Sega Mega Drive, Sega Genesis hit the market with 3 cartridge games available for it. To break it down really quickly, we got the Menacer 6-in-1 pack-in cartridge, a bunch of generic games for you to check out, but that wasn't always the idea here. The idea really was to provide 6 innovative, unique games using Sega franchises, using the light gun in various, non-violent ways. It wasn't just supposed to be another shooting gallery, but essentially that's exactly what we got on the Menacer cartridge right here. It's generic, it's bland, but you get to shoot bugs to save pizza, you get to shoot aliens, and the single best reason to check this cartridge out is the Toe Jam and Earl Ready Aim Tomatoes. It was actually designed and developed by the original guys who made the Toe Jam and Earl games. They are awesome games. For a light gun game, there's a lot of charm here as well. It's simple, it's basic, you're only going to be playing it for about 15 minutes before you've seen everything there is to see, but for a pack-in title, that's about as good as we could expect. Then of course there's T2, the arcade game. This came out on literally every system ever, but if you're a massive fan of the Menacer and you want a bit of Menacer action in your life, you basically got to take it or leave it. There's only 3 games available and it's half decent. The one cool thing about it does actually support multiplayer co-op. So if you're using the Sega Menacer, you obviously want to show it off, so you pass your controller to your buddy and say, hey, good luck, we're on the same team. But you pull out the Menacer, you take down all those Terminators, you look like a goddamn hero. Sega for the win. The game itself does actually have some really cool looking stages based off the second Terminator movie. It's worth checking out. If you've got a Sega Mega Drive and a Menacer, you don't really have that many other options. Give it a whirl, see what you think. It's still available relatively cheaply. In terms of Menacer cartridges, it's one of the best. It's also available on Genesis. That's another thing. For us PAL users using the Mega Drive, we got one really actual standout Menacer game, Body Count. It's going to be putting both your reflexes and your trigger fingers to the test. Go ahead, blast that alien scum back to where it came from. You're in a post-apocalyptic battleground. You can damage the enemies, there's giblets, there's bits flying everywhere, there's different types of enemies, parallax scrolling, background damage, and you are not going to find anything this intense on the Super Nintendo. It would literally make a Super Scope melt and burn those little fanboy arms. So literally enjoy it for the Mega Drive only. Developed in 1994 by Probe, who also handled the port of T2, the arcade game. We've got a similar co-op mode here as well, but this time it's absolutely worth it. So 3 games probably sounds a little bit pathetic, and that's because it absolutely is. But you're already invested in the Sega Menacer. You know that Sega are not going to leave you out in the cold. There had to be a bigger plan at play. Absolutely there was. Boys and girls, it is time to put all our eggs in one basket, because FMV gaming is the future. And when you pair it with the Sega Menacer, you get a whole bunch of awesome FMV games that you get to blast your way through. To kick it off, we are strapping ourselves in for Scottie Pippen's Slam City Basketball Massacre. You stop me, but... Ha ha ha! Take that, suckers! Alright. Scottie Pippen's not actually compatible with the Sega Menacer. I just made that up. I wanted to have a bit of fun. I'm reviewing these games and I wanted to have a bit of fun while doing it, okay? I'm not going to have much other fun today. But we are going to look at a couple of actual Menacer-compatible FMV titles. Just a word of warning, right? All these games are basically going to be American laser games. They've essentially sponsored this entire review with those titles. So Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for your amazing FMV titles. I can't wait to check them all out. Let's get started. We're going to be looking at Mad Dog McCree first up.
We're simple folk. I'm scared to death. We're simple folk.
We're just simple folk. Simple, overacting folk. Folk who wouldn't flee town with the rest of them, but hang around to tell you all about it. Listen here, stranger. Howdy, guys, and welcome to the Wild Wild West, where the rules are simple. Cut out those Western accents as soon as you walk through that saloon door, and you've got to be able to survive. See me? Don't worry about me. I've actually got a certificate saying that I'm a bona fide bad dude cowboy that my mum helped me laminate. I've got the fast reflexes needed to survive out here in the West, or at least quit while I'm ahead. I'm a little bit more worried about you guys. I'm not 100% convinced you're as bad as me. So, word of caution, this game is going to be long, repetitive, and it's going to make you incredibly frustrated and angry. It's not an easy game, and it is incredibly frustrating. The FMV video itself as a genre, it's got a lot of problems. And as these Sega CD systems get older, essentially the FMV game is streamed from the disc as you play. There's going to be lots of skips, pauses, jumps. It's not a very smooth experience. It's not incredibly immersive. And as these machines get older, those problems just get worse. So we've essentially got these games out here that have got a lot of problems, and they're just highlighted by the age of these consoles. So look, it's a word of caution. If you really like these FMV games and you want to check out a couple for yourself, the Sega CD might actually be one of the worst ways to experience them. They've always had issues with the video quality. DOS computers had a lot of these FMV games as well as the 3DO. If you are a massive Mad Dog McCree fan, the Wii actually had its very own release, the Gunslinger pack featuring the first two games that we'll cover here on the Sega CD, as well as a third released only to arcades called the Bounty Hunter. The Wiimotes really make good guns. I mean, nothing's going to compare with a Menacer, but when you don't have the option of a Menacer, the Wii's a really good place to find those FMV games. And if you guys are craving some more campy Western action, there's something wrong in your head. But American Laser Games are just as messed up as you, because they actually released Mad Dog McCree 2, The Lost Gold, right here on the Sega CD. More challenges, more characters, more repetitive, frustrating, soul-crushing action for you FMV
Stranger, you think
like
you're tough
fanatics.
enough to take on Mad Dog? Prove it to me. That man is the scourge of the territory. Why, to beat Mad Dog to the Spanish treasure, you'll have to take on renegade Indians. Bandido, senor. And Mad Dog's sleazy crew. You think you can beat that crazy killer to the Spanish treasure? He's ready to dynamite the whole of Superstition Mountain to get at that gold. He's well armed, stranger. Bear that in mind. Mad Dog's back.
Depending on which guides you pick during the game, the challenges are going to be slightly different, but essentially you've got to play with every single guide, go through every single stage, and basically shoot every single cowboy in the Wild Wild West to recover the lost gold and finish. All of the games are going to be essentially the same. They're going to try and dress it up in slightly different ways, but we are just tip of the iceberg here in terms of the games available for the Sega CD. Mad Dog McCree, again, really recommend getting it for the Wii instead. I hope you're ready for some more. Time to badge up, rookie. Next up is Crime Patrol.
Welcome to Undercover.
You gotta be tough to be on this team, partner.
Welcome to Delta Force.
You're you're already rocking the Sega Menacer, now it's time to really prove yourself. Work your way up through the police ranks, taking out more violent criminals. Start off with like petty thugs and then, you know, work your way into the SWAT team. So the whole goal of this game is to rise through the ranks of the police force. You start taking out like petty thugs and criminal bosses. You work your way up to taking down terrorists, working in the SWAT team. But the only option you have in these sort of games is shooting people, which is a lot of fun to do with a Sega Menacer. But it always gets me questioning, like a guy stealing a TV, shot to the face. Stealing plutonium, shot to the face. Taking hostages again, shot to the face. There is no middle ground with these sort of games. You're just shooting people. We saw it in Dog McCree. We're seeing it here in Crime Patrol. It's a shame that they don't have, you know, different areas to shoot people within, but the only other option really is not shooting people like hostages. This game has a bunch of hostages you're not supposed to shoot. That is your gameplay variety right there. Look, these sexy dances actually make me a little bit nervous. It's going to make it really hard to hit pause if Mum walks in. Final score for this game is a 10 out of 10. It lets me relive my fantasies of being Rambo, especially from the second and third movies. Just blowing things up, fighting alongside Bruce Willis, taking out an entire airport full of terrorists, and basically fighting alongside a knockoff Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like every action movie bundled together in a really cheap, crappy TV special, and you get to play through with a Sega Menacer. Again, the FMV gameplay mechanics, they're gonna drive you crazy. They are so frustrating. I recommend just watching the clips on YouTube, to be perfectly honest. Reviews like this, watching the clips on YouTube, save yourself the actual frustration.
You'll never make it.
But yeah, absolutely 10 out of 10, guys. Gotta check it out. Who shot Johnny Rock? It's a game I wanted to show you guys. It has got a legit gangster theme going on here. You're a detective, you've got to uncover clues, you've got to shoot a whole lot of mobsters and provide some really masculine narration so that the audience can follow along with you. I always really appreciate stories with a lot of narration just so you can't miss anything. It treats you like an idiot, but again, it's another Menacer Light Gun game from American Laser Games. I like the way they tried to incorporate the clues and the telephone calls and trying to get more information, but basically you were just shooting everybody in sight. Welcome to the seedy gangster underbelly. I've been shot. Let me just, hop up on this table. As you progress through this game, you're going to uncover new locations, new enemies to take out, new people to interrogate, which basically means shooting them in the face. And if that's enough for you, then absolutely, I envy you. Congratulations. FMV games. It's really hard to stay interested. It's really hard to stay focused. There's just not so much to cover. They're not a whole lot of fun. And that's another reason why they didn't do so well. There were some really good examples of FMV games that really tried to do something with the genre. One of my favorite FMV games ever, Simpsons Virtual Springfield, as well as the Goosebumps Escape from Horrorland games. Both of those used full motion video. Beavis and Butthead Do You Again, another animated title that used full motion video to help you explore and uncover places. It was a really good example of how the genre could work on PCs at the time. and it just doesn't work for these light gun games. They're just not that much fun, and I really hope the Menacer would make a little bit of a difference, but you are so stuck in a pathway as to what you can shoot, what you can't shoot, when you can shoot, when you can't shoot. It drives you crazy, it's frustrating. These games, they've got problems.
There she was in the purple cape, Lockjaw Lil. She was the tight-lipped dame that I had needed to talk to.
So, Corpse Killer, the best thing I can say about it is that it reminds me of Yui Bowl's famously bad House of the Dead movie. Yui Bowl is a German director who makes a lot of really bad video game movies. He took Sega's kind of cool House of the Dead franchise and made a movie about it. Zombies running loose on a tropical island where a mad professor's doing a whole ton of experiments. That's basically what Corpse Killer is.
Electro Posse's got very sick dudes, brah. Bad dudes, man. Bad dudes. Yeah, brah. There's the great Babylon fortress now.
Fantastic.
Cover me, brah. I'm going in.
Corpse Killer, the best thing I can say about it is that it reminds me of a sequel to a terrible movie based off a game I'd much rather be playing. A game on the Sega Saturn with an amazing light gun. I mean, nothing against the Sega Menacer. I do really love this peripheral, but it's so convoluted and over the top and complicated. You need to have the little IR receiver, you need to have a bunch of batteries set up, you need to have all these different attachments and modules you can add to your Sega Menacer. The Sega Saturn light guns are freaking amazing, and if you want to see how good those things are, go check out my Halloween reviews where I take a look at the Sega Saturn as well as the light guns available for it. Unfortunately, the Sega Menacer itself doesn't feel like an arcade quality piece of kit. It's very plastic, it's incredibly flimsy. You know, the problem isn't the fact that these games are 16-bit or that the peripherals didn't hold up on the Sega Mega Drive. The problem really kind of is FMV gaming itself wasn't particularly amazing or great, but you know, big picture here, and look, I've actually made a small version of a big picture. The big picture really is that FMV games were a way to immerse the gamer in whatever game they were playing. Graphics are consistently getting better. We are seeing more and more realistic gameplay. More and more realistic gameplay creates a more and more realistic experience for the gamer. FMV games in the 90s were one way to achieve this super realistic approach to gaming. It was a way to immerse gamers in an experience, whether that be a Western movie, a zombie flick, a gangster movie. There were so many different ways they could cut it, but it was just as one studio making all these FMV games. None of them were particularly good, and the gameplay was seriously lackluster, so the experience itself didn't hold up even through the best intentions that they had. The Sega Menacer was another way for the experience to become more realistic. Instead of playing these games with a control pad, you actually had a device you could point at the screen and shoot with. So all things considered, thank God we've done the hard yards. Us as gamers have suffered through games like this, and we've moved on to bigger and better things, especially when we look at the Sega Saturn and the 32-bit era and the Sony PlayStation, how much gaming evolved strictly in that 90s space. I talk about the Atari Jaguar a lot. The Atari Jaguar as a console really interests me because that was like right on the verge of these 3D games, and the games don't look as good as the Sega Saturn or the Sony PlayStation, but they look 3D. They're actually 3D, and you can see the big difference over the Atari Jaguar versus games like these right here on the Mega Drive. As far as games go, I wouldn't bother with the Sega CD library, especially if you've got a Sega Menacer. There really only is one option for you. I hate to say it, Body Count. Body Count is the single standout Sega Menacer game, and it looks fantastic. So obviously we've been through a lot of games here on the Sega CD, games that use the Sega Menacer, and as far as Menacer games go, most of the games are actually available on the Sega CD, but I really wanted to finish on a strong point. I already mentioned body count. I couldn't review it the first time round simply because I couldn't afford it, but I got a part-time job with my mum cleaning ashtrays to bring you body count today. This is the strongest way to finish off any Sega Menacer review. Body count is a fantastic game, brought out in 1994. It's got the parallax scrolling, it's got enemies that explode, background damage. Graphically, it really pushes the Mega Drive to its limits. It looks fantastic and it really shows off what the Sega Menacer was capable of doing. As a Sega fanboy, we really just needed more games like this. Body count, complete with a bunch of different weapons, enemies, different types of stages, different types of innovative ways to shoot aliens. I really appreciate what they were able to do. It's just a real shame it was only brought out in PAL regions in Europe and Brazil. I really hope my American friends can at least emulate it to experience body count. And again, I was really excited just in general to bust out a peripheral I enjoyed having as a kid. Being able to interact with your games in a slightly different way, being able to blast the crap out of bad guys is a lot of fun. And I really miss this when it comes to modern gaming, just having all the different peripherals and add-ons. A controller's fun, a controller is practical. It's how I play 99% of my games, but when I've got friends over, when I want to entertain, I bust out the gimmicky stuff because I really do enjoy it and I enjoy what they were trying to do with it. It's a shame we've only got like 1 or 2 games worth checking out, but if you really enjoy the Sega Menacer, check out my first review where I really start to look at the cartridges and the games available on cartridges for the Menacer. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, checking out the channel. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the video with all your friends and family. Check out more madness if you get the chance. Oh, I'm out of breath. Thank you so much for watching. Tune in next time for some more leftover culture. Cheers, guys.